continuing on with the discussion about your Moshiach and Techiyas HaMeisim. Okay? So previously was talking about how that in your Moshiach it will be very natural at the beginning and then become more and more miraculous as time goes on. A combination of your Moshiach every day. Right? The life will be like in Mitzrayim. It starts out very, very natural. Well, to still do things, take care of everyday responsibilities, but there's no Yetzer Hara, no Shibud Malchios, and that changes everything. There's no evil in the world anymore whatsoever. And then he talks about how we're not going to really become free of all the Zuhama, which is kind of the impurity that we're stuck with that makes it so physical in the first place, until later on by Techiyas HaMeisim we all die, and Kosh Baruch Hu resurrects us, brings it back once again, and but we'll come back with Kasanas Or, right, Aleph of Reish, looking more like Adam Arishon did before the Chet. That's what we'll look like. We'll look like people will have bodies that will give off light, like Moshe Rabbeinu, the Karni Hod. That's what he says. Okay, but now he's going to do with a question, which is very important because it's very relevant to the whole discussion about any kind of timetable we might have regarding Yemos Moshiach. So he says, B'hinei l'chayra, theoretically, Haya nira lamar dezman ichol shel kol osan shemusu kaidem techia lo hiya shaveh v'kulam ela b'kol echad lefi medrigaso. How long does a person spend in the ground before they resurrect? Should it be the same amount of time, different amounts of time? What does it depend upon? So, as the Gemara points out in Shabbos, a major part of dissolving the ground, of decomposing the ground, basically is for the sake of it's part of the kapora process. It's part of a kapora process for how much you got involved in Gashmias in this world. The more you were involved in Gashmias, the longer, theoretically, you should spend in the ground rotting until you're finally free of all the effect of that in your life. That's what he says logically should be the case. He says, Aval lefi nusach acher, right, a different version of this, Shirkas bazar haniska v'yakim lon miyad. He says we all get up immediately. So it seems to say that we don't all, go according to where we're holding spiritually, but we all spend the same amount of time in the ground. That's what the second Gears is saying. Hare mashma shezman echad kulam. From this, it's mashma would seem to be that it's the same amount of time for everybody. Amnam, however, nira, it seems to be ki ishtana b'kol echad zman hamisa v'techia, right? Versus lamar shelo yemusu kulam b'pam echad b'meila shishtana zmani atechiyos gam kein ki mi sheyeh mitukan kodem uzmaso yukdam bo v'gam kein misa v'techia ki misa. Okay, so he goes the next way. He says that you're right, that we all spend the same amount of time in the ground. Fine, we accept that, okay? But what's going to change, and this is very important, what's going to change is when a person dies. In other words, you may spend a year in the ground or 6 months in the ground decomposing to come back at Techiyas HaMeisim. But whether you die at the beginning of Techiyas HaMeisim or the middle of Techiyas HaMeisim or the end or sometime during that period of time will depend upon how ruchani you are. So if a tzaddik, someone who was a tzaddik, who was not involved in Gashmias, wasn't involved in materialism so much, will die and come back right away. Someone who is more Gashmi will die later on and come back, whatever period of time it is after that. So what's the nafkamina then? The nafkamina is going to be that you're going to have people walking around who have already become purified and are spiritual like angels. They'll look like angels, the Gemara says. Living amongst people will still look like this, will still be physical. So it'll be a mixture of people who already resurrected it and were fixed up because they merited to come back earlier, and people who will not. And maybe the last person turns out the lights. Maybe right before 6,000, the last person has to live the entire time without having resurrected, and then he comes at the end, he dies and comes back right before Olam Haba. That's what he's saying right now. And he says, Gam ge misa v'techia, he misa shel az yihiyah rak la'akel es chumrius haguf. Because the whole point at Techiyas HaMeisim at that time is only going to be to dissolve the physicality of the body. Because again, this is not the way we were created. We were created more like angels on a higher level. This is the result of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra and whatever went wrong after that in the Garden of Eden. And then we got expelled because the world became more physical as a result of us as well. The animals and all that, and we changed everything. And we had to go back. to the way it once was. And that's what Techiyas HaMeisim is all about. He says, L'chadshot b'panim chadash, to make the body brand new, v'yeh hemshech hazman asher, ma'misa l'techiyah l'kulam shaveh. So therefore we have both rules operating. The amount of time a person will spend in the ground is the same for everybody, no matter how righteous you were. Right? But the time of death itself will not be the same for everyone. But and therefore the time of dying and resurrecting, asher l'kol ador, for the entire generation which who's living at that time, hahuz manim harbeh. So that's already changed the whole thing, right? Because the way we looked at it until now, based upon the first gears of the Zohar and how people tend to imagine it, the Techiyas HaMeisim may be a long period that we're going to live into, especially if it comes later on in the world to come, but it's a momentary thing, right? Meaning that you die, you come back, or we all die together and come back shortly after. That's the way we understand. Like, it's just going to be a very fast thing. He's saying no. He's saying that based upon the Zohar, and he's going to bring a proof in a second, that if it's true that we're going to die at different points, because it depends upon where you're holding spiritually in your lifetime, then that means the period of time that Techiyas HaMeisim is going to last a period of time. Because this guy dies today, this guy dies tomorrow, this guy dies a year from now, this guy dies 5 years from now. So however long the period is going to be, it's going to be longer than a moment. That's important. Okay? So he goes on to say, right? But the righteous people who have already died previously, in maybe 1,000 years ago, 100 years ago, they're dead before it begins. Heim yikumu b'rishona. They'll come back first. Shehu teikav acher. So when is that? When does it begin? When does the Techiyas HaMeisim actually begin? So he says, right? Teikach acher. Right? Immediately after Arbim Shana, the Kibbutz Galios. The Techiyas HaMeisim begins 40 years from Kibbutz Galios. So that's like a framework over here. It's a timeline. There's a 40-year, whenever Kibbutz Galios begins, it's going to be 40 years long. Okay? 40 years long. And then begins the Techiyas HaMeisim. So that means within that 40-year period of time, Moshiach has to come. Because Moshiach is now relevant in Techiyas HaMeisim. There's nothing to do. We're all righteous. The world's perfect already. Now we're just rebuilding it to be like God named. You don't need Moshiach at that period of time. It has to be before. So when is that? Sometime during the 40 years of Kibbutz Galios, whatever that period involves. Jews coming back, Eretz Israel, the whole thing, Moshiach, the wars, the Gog and Magog. It's going to all be in that 40-year period of time. That's what he says, okay? And he says, and after that begins the Techiyas HaMeisim. So this is what the Zohar says in a section called Medrash Ne'elam. There's different parts of the Zohar. Some are more straightforward, some are more Kabbalistic, some are more Midrashic. Medrash Ne'elam is more Kabbalistically Midrashic, and it brings it down over there. And it says, and Parashat told us, that Kuf Mem Amad Aleph, Sheyu Harbet Techiyos. There's going to be a lot of resurrections. The Yumshach, and the period of time is going to continue. Zman Kol Techiyos Ledas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says from 40 years, Mimem Shana Acher Kibbutz Galios, right? Because we all agree on that point. She'az Yeh HaTechiyah HaRishona, because the first Techiyah will take place at that point. Okay. Kenizkar umiaz yumshach zman kol techiyas ad techiyah achron, until the very last one, hemshech 210 shanim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, and he brings it based upon a source in the Zohar, that he says the entire period of Techiyas HaMeisim is going to last 210 years. Not a momentary thing, 210 years. So 40 years of Kibbutz Galios, through which Moshiach has to come, followed by a period of time of 210 years of Techiyas HaMeisim, and then 6,000 comes, or whatever comes, and you have Olam Haba. Right? That's the way it plays out. So he says, right? However, according to Das Rabbi Yitzchak, Matayim v'arba asar shanim. Rabbi Yitzchak is a dissenting opinion. He says, no, 214 years, just 4-year difference. Meaning it starts earlier. Well, it depends. It depends. If we're talking about 1,000 years ago, then it would just maybe start at the same time and end a little bit later. But the point is over here, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have a period of 250 years, 40 years of Kibbutz Galios, followed by a necessary period of 210 years of Techiyas HaMeisim. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, 40 years of Kibbutz Galios, during which Moshiach has to come and do his thing, followed by 214 years of Techiyas HaMeisim. So that's 250 versus 254. Now again, if it was 1,000 years ago, that could be anywhere. It's not strange, but the important thing is here is that, well, how much time is left in history? We're holding right now in 2019, we're holding in 5779. How much time is left? Well, it's less than 250 years. It's less than the 210 years.
Until 6,000.
Yeah, we can only go till 6,000, right? So 6,000 subtract 210, right, is 5790. 5790 is how many years from now, right? It's almost 5780, right? So that's 11 years from now. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, it's 254. So you have to push back now 4 years earlier because of the 4 extra years. So that would mean that Kibbutz Galios would have to have begun officially, the final stage of it, at least like we spoke about, 40 years before that. So 40 years before 5790 is 5750 or 1990. 40 years before 5786, which is Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion, would be 1986. That places us in the 40 years of Kibbutz Galios. That places us in the period of Kol Yemos Mashiach. So this is not a prediction for the date of Mashiach. We're not doing that. We have no idea which day he's going to come. We're not even saying which year he's going to come. We're just saying, well, wait a second. He can't come into Techiyas HaMeisim. That's a rule, because it's not necessary. It's superfluous for Mashiach to come then. And the Zohar is saying, not us, the Zohar is saying, the Leshem is bringing it down the way it's written, right? The Zohar is saying that that's going to last between 210 to 214 years. But we're already close to that period of time right now. And that only follows after 40 years from Kibbutz Galios, the Zohar says as well, and the Leshem brings it down as well, which means we're holding by that, we believe in it. So that means that we have to now push back to before our time for Kibbutz Galios, which goes back to 1986, 1990, which means as of those period of time, 1986 according to Rabbi Yitzchak, and 1990 according to Rabbi Yehuda, would have begun the period of time called Kibbutz Galios
40 years.
For 40 years, which includes Yemos Mashiach. And now, as we approach the Techiyas HaMeisim period of time, hard to believe, of course, because we've never seen anything like this. We've been waiting for thousands of years. You have to be a maimin. You have to really believe the Zohar. You have to believe what it's saying, to believe in this concept. That's why we have Yud Gimel Ikarim of Amunah that mentions these things. You have to believe in these things and talk about these things and be real with these things. And we're not, because we don't talk about them. It's not real to us. But here it is. It's telling us that the reality of the Techiyas HaMeisim is coming close and will be upon us maybe in our lifetime. Hard to believe? 100%. Outside the box? 100%. Doesn't change the reality if you're a believer, right? And then you have the Kibbutz Galios. Well, what's interesting now is that you would expect there to be signs in history to back this up, to corroborate. This idea could come out of the blue. A lot of things will. But Kibbutz Galios is not something that you can hide. It's the ingathering of the exiles. And we know that anyhow it's been going on for hundreds of years, miraculously, right? Kind of under the carpet in a sense, like behind the scenes. But all of a sudden, an event takes place around 88, 89, exactly within the time frame we're talking about. Right. The Berlin Wall comes down, Russia implodes, and for the first time, the Russian Jews are free to leave. For better or for worse. But they're free to leave. And it's the last place that Jews are being held captive against their will en masse. And the Persian Gulf War, which changes the whole status of AIPAC and America and the relationship of the Arabs to the Americans and Jews to the Americans, all these changes take place around that time. There's more to say about this. That's just the beginning of it. But at least establishes already the direction we're going and why what's going on today historically is so incredibly significant. If you don't know this, it's just more events, ups and downs in history, right? Crests and waves, what are they called? But there's another crest or wave, whatever it is. But if you know this, then it's like, wait a second, what's going on today? That's meaningful. How does it fit in? Does it fit in? The World Trade Center changed history. Part of this? Absolutely. Has to be. So now, if that's the case, the clock is ticking. Very much so. And a person has to make themselves more aware of what's going on and what to do. Because Jewish history has proven over and over and over again, we don't pay attention to the signs when they're coming. We always get stuck and pay the price for getting stuck. And here, we have an opportunity to put things in perspective.